Welcome to Rich Conversations. Today I thought we would talk about the Lindy effect. What is the Lindy effect? Well, I certainly didn't know until last summer, 2021, and it was actually here that I learned about it. Right now I am behind the bar at Lincoln Station in Chicago, Illinois, and it was a customer that really informed me about it. His name is Paul Scalise, and some of you may know him as Lindy Man. You can follow him on Twitter at Lindy Man. And so he would come in, and he would typically drink a half-acre Pony Pils, which is a Pilsner made in a neighborhood, local neighborhood in Chicago. And he would kind of just sit by himself, just kind of chill a little bit, and eventually he would come by a few times, and we strike up conversation, and it's we start talking to each other, and we just had these great conversations. We talk about philosophy, approach to life, and just the city and just life in general, and it was so fantastic. It was so much fun, and basically what the Lindy effect is, or my understanding of it, is that something non-biological, its future is equivalent to its past, right? So say a book has been in print for 40 years. It's likely that it'll be in print another 40 years, right? But say a book that has only been out for 2 years, it will probably be out another 2 years, but beyond that, we don't exactly know. So it's kind of equivalent to that, right? Here, Lincoln Station, this fine establishment, has been in business for 24 years, and that's a huge deal for restaurants in large cities. You're doing something really well. So if we're applying the Lindy effect here, right, there's a good chance we'll be around more long-term than other restaurants and bars that haven't been around quite as long, right? We've been in business for 24 years, but if someone's been in for 5 years, it's a little bit murkier, right? So you build that kind of standard, and these non-biological things can, they become stronger over time. They're tested, right? So Paul and I would have these great conversations, and he was actually here. I think he was living in Paris, and then he had to get his paperwork. He had to redo his paperwork or something. So he was living in Chicago for a while, and we would talk a lot about the city. Now, he is a big fan of going on walks, as am I. So actually what's really nice about having a conversation with Paul, and there's a few people like this where I'm behind the bar, I interact with a whole lot of people, right? But every now and then you get people that you really connect with, and they're wow, they get it, they get me, and I think we read a lot of the same stuff. I think we practice a lot of the same philosophy and approaches, and we both write a lot. So he has this newsletter, it's fantastic, and he gets a lot of his inspiration from going on walks. He'll take 2-hour walks, right? And that's where a lot of ideas come from, right? Oftentimes, especially in America, it's work, be productive, but kind of from our experience, you can get so much done on walks. You can solve the biggest problems you have on walks. Just go for a walk. And what I love about walks, which I'm sure Paul does too, is there's so much going on in a city. We've talked about the walkability of cities. It's such an important factor of just happiness and measurements of fulfillment and purpose in a way, because you're interacting with everything around you. And I talked to him about this book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs. It's one of my favorite books, and she's definitely an inspiration of mine, but a lot of her ideas echo the idea behind Paul's embrace of the Lindy effect. And a lot of ideas that have been around for thousands of years have been tested, and so that's why they're still effective today. And there's kind of this almost this arrogance of the contemporary in a way, where we think just because something's new, it's better than what's existed for so long, right? And human beings, we haven't changed much in thousands of years. We haven't changed much, right? And if you really want to live a great life, it's all been written. The wisdom's already there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Do those things, right? And for me, like learning about those concepts, it's really about like fundamentals. It's the fundamentals of life. If you get the fundamentals down, you're pretty solid. But a lot of times we think just because we live, in a time that's the future compared to antiquity, we think something's automatically better, right? And there's this book called But What If We're Wrong by Chuck Klosterman. And it's thinking about the present as if it were the past. And I think about this a lot. It's kind of like another favorite book of mine. But it's imagining ourselves in the future. And think about today, right? And when I think about it that way, I can observe all the things that are happening, all the ideas and things, the way people approach life. And what in 15 years from now are we going to be thinking, I don't think that was a good idea, right? We're so in the moment, we have to take a step back a bit. A great example is the internet, technology, especially like social media. Social media, has been around, '05, around that time, a little earlier too. I guess it all depends how you define it, but really I think things took off like 2012, 2013 with our smartphones, and the way we use and interact with the internet, I think has changed, and I don't know necessarily if it's going to last that way. I think in 15 years, what I'm trying to say is that like by taking a fundamental approach to life, you can realize your human potential if you just focus on those fundamentals, right? Because those fundamentals have been around for years and years and years. And I think, and I would love to get Paul's opinion on this, but it feels to me like the 21st century enables this like new social class, in America at least, where the people that take the time and effort to realize their human potential, you add that with technology, and you're living in this like quantum class that has never existed, right? The technology, we're using 3 iPhones to record this, right? We got one right here, one right there, and I'm using this one for audio, right? But I use the technology and these things simply as tools, and it's fantastic. We got more power right here than what it took to get us to the moon. NASA had to get us to the moon, and it's like the people that realize that, I think, are going to really excel in the 21st century. Just the way we interact with the internet, I think in the future we'll look back and be like, what were we doing, in a way? So the people that can really step away from that, I think will live a great life. If the internet is causing you more stress and anxiety in your life, you're probably using it wrong, But getting back to Jane Jacobs and conversations with Paul. So the Death and Life in Great American Cities. Jane Jacobs, she's an urban activist in New York, and I think Greenwich Village. And her whole kind of idea, and I definitely like subscribe to this philosophy, is like it's all about like being on the ground. Like, what are people actually saying? You got to talk to people, right? And I think a lot of times, and this is what's so beautiful about a city, we're here in Chicago, it's like there's so much happening, and that's why I love bartending, because it's like I hear all these different conversations. I'm having all these different conversations with people, and you get a real sense of like what's real, right? Like what's actually happening. A lot of times we have people that lead with their egos, or they're on power trips, and they kind of want to apply this like top-down approach where it's like, okay, I have my ideas and like impose them on everybody else. But really what you have to do, and this is, I think, about leadership, it's about like serving others, right? You know, as a bartender, I'm serving others and trying to understand how to communicate and talk to people and what are their needs, right? So you got to listen to people. What do they want? What are they experiencing? And if you look at it more like macro level, you can see this happening with the internet, where it's like people don't talk to people that are different than them. And then so people they have their own culture and ideas, and they kind of like want to impose it on other people. But to me, like the best thing about America is that you're free to live whatever life you want to live, but just don't like bother other people. Anyways, getting back to our point, I see, especially with like Jane Jacobs, is that our cities operate according to laws of nature. Now, laws of nature, studying like physics, biology, everything is kind of like an ecosystem, and everything is kind of interdependent of everything else. And I love that. So it's like your interaction in the city, you're walking around, matters. It affects that person, that next person, and then it affects the other person, right? So if one part of the city isn't doing well, the whole suffers. Same thing with our bodies and organizations. You can apply this. So by learning the laws of nature, the interconnectedness of things, and applying it, I mean, these laws have been in existence for such a long time. And I love talking with Paul about all these different ideas, and Paul has some fantastic writing that goes into all of these. I definitely recommend checking them out. Something that Paul mentioned that I just like, I can't get out of my head now. He goes, so he's sitting down, and he looks out the window, and he turns and he's like, do you ever notice that like all the cars look the same now? And so, I look out the window and I'm like, every car looks the same now. Every SUV looks like every other SUV. Every car, every truck, like all the contours and everything. So like what really, what are you specifically buying for in a way? And then at that point it becomes marketing. So then it's like getting away from, the less you understand about yourself, the more you're going to be influenced by marketing and ideas and like new fads and ideas. Say like dieting, like to eat healthy, it's pretty simple. That's beside the fact. But the Lindy effect, you can use it and apply it and think of it in so many different ways. It's so applicable, it's so useful. And I got to thank Paul for like letting me know about this, and then following him, he has just like great writing and tweets. It's fantastic. So I've always enjoyed our conversations together, and it's just exploring just these ideas that have been around and applying them to our own lives. It's a great way to build great habits and live a healthy, happy life. So thanks for listening. Be sure to follow Paul on Twitter @LindyMan. Keep pursuing your curiosity.